A lot of what you hear on the media is doom and gloom. The planet is going up in smoke, the ice caps are melting, climate change is killing us all. The geopolitical situation is collapsing, like it does every year, and we could be threatened at any moment with war, famine, disease, and so on. Culturally, things are no better. If you live on the left, the world is poisoned by white supremacy and transphobia and any other number of problematics you might incur. While if you live on the right, civil society and culture is being dissolved by toxic activists and leftist subverters.
Why do we bother?
I know. But there is one factor which all of these messages share in common. They are all highly shareable news. The structure of the internet promotes this poisoned information ecosystem where negative, emotionally powerful stories spread like wildfire. The feels travel twice around the world before the reals have got their boots on. But occasionally, I think it's worth putting these things in context. As we turn the corner into 2022, let's consider some of the good things that have happened in 2021 that you might not have heard about.
Good things happened.
Yeah, good things happened. Loads of them, actually.
Brilliant.
But I managed to fit a few big ones in here, which I went into in depth. But yeah, let's get out of this information ecosystem that's obsessed with negativity. So there's one particular frontier which is expanding at an incredible rate. Which one do you think it might be? He says,
space travel.
Yes, space exploration has never quite recaptured the popular imagination in the way it did with the space race and the moon landings of 1969. And NASA in particular does seem to have fallen victim to the bureaucratic bloat and inefficiency which accompanies many an exorbitant public spending project. But this year, NASA had two big moments, really big moments, the culmination of decades of high-tech work and planning. So let's go to the first one. On February the 18th of this year, 2021, the Perseverance rover landed on Mars. Let's play the landing footage. It's really quite stunning. We'll just let that go in the background. That's the surface of Mars.
Wow.
It's the rover descending. That'll just go on in the background. So, what is Perseverance? What is it doing? Well, it's a Mars rover, like Curiosity that we sent out before, but with newer tech and different objectives. It's got numerous scientific objectives, including testing soil samples, looking for habitats that might once have supported microbial life, and testing oxygen production technologies on the surface of Mars. All very exciting stuff. Perseverance also carried the Ingenuity flyer. Have you heard of Ingenuity?
I haven't.
So Ingenuity is variously described as a drone or a mini helicopter. It's about, I think, 15 centimeters long, so it's quite small. But it carried out the first powered flight on Mars. Wow. Yeah. It's currently made 18 successful flights. Sorry, my eyes are just being drawn to this footage because it's quite remarkable. I remember when this came out earlier in the year, it was stunning to just see like a video of this quality of another planet. Really cool.
No, it is.
But yeah, drone exploration of Mars could revolutionize the way we explore the red planet. Rovers are excruciatingly slow, like ridiculously slow. They move far slower than walking because they are required to be energy efficient. Drones, on the other hand, offer the potential to explore points of interest on a much greater area of the planet's surface in much shorter time. So if you think about this, could you imagine you've got your rover, which is plodding along really slowly, but you can send drones out, which are very light, very low energy, and they can spread across a huge amount of surface. They can take images, they can collect samples, bring it back to the rover to test. It's actually quite an exciting technology, I think.
No, it is.
And we do have some other recent footage from Mars, including these photos, which were taken yesterday at the time of recording. Let's go to the next one.
Wow.
I know.
That's impressive detail.
It is. It is. And I mean, you don't really get the feel for how hilly Mars is.
No.
It's enormous. I can't see anywhere to put my house yet, but I'm sure NASA will find me a nice sheltered oasis. Just give it time. Have we moved to the next one? I think I've got 3 here. This is another one. And again, it's just brown rocks. But there is a sky, and it's eerie because it looks like it could be somewhere on Earth.
It does. It looks like a kind of sandstorm is looming.
Very sepia toned, isn't it?
Yes.
Very monochrome. I wonder if you get like Mars blindness if you were actually on there and everything was similar colour. And the final one we have here. Again, just another stunning photo of rocks and dust on another planet.
Brilliant.
So the other of NASA's projects is the James Webb Space Telescope, which launched on Christmas Day. What were you doing on Christmas Day? Stuffing yourself in turkey?
Nothing as inspiring as that, I can assure you.
That's not this one.
But wholesome nonetheless.
if this telescope unfolds correctly, and there are lots of things in the deployment process which could go wrong, there's like thousands of things.
Right.
So if they do get it right, it'll be incredible. Then we will be seeing the universe like we've never seen it before.
How far will we be able to look? I know that's an awful question to have to ask.
Yeah. Essentially to the ends of the universe, in a way.
How is that possible when the universe is continually expanding?
Well, you can't see the current universe, but you can see essentially the light cone of the ends of the universe. So, yeah. It's essentially, when I talk about the light cone, basically, if you imagine a 2D sphere and you have a single point that's emitting light, then if you stand downstream of that, then you cannot perceive what is happening to that object until the light cone reaches you. So there is that massive time lag.
No, I get that.
And because the universe is so large, you have the same effect.
Yes.
That you are seeing everything in the universe from millions of years in the past.
Time dilations at play constantly.
Lots of things going on, which make it quite complicated. So, we might spot intelligent life, a thriving civilization on another planet, and by the time the light reaches us, that civilization, the entire species, has already been dead for millions of years. Quite incredible.
Yeah, so if we find like a supermassive black hole heading our way, then we shouldn't panic, because that almost certainly happened 40,000 years ago, and quite clearly hasn't come to fruition yet.
Yeah, that's another way of looking at it.
Yes.
But the James Webb Telescope is designed to receive a low frequency range of the electromagnetic spectrum, which enables the detection of particularly high redshift objects, things in the universe which are moving away from the Earth at very high speed. If you remember Doppler shift from GCSE physics.
I remember second to nothing about GCSE physics.
Okay, fair enough. So the idea is, as objects are moving closer together, the wave fronts get closer and closer together, which means that the object is blue shifted. And as they move further and further away, the wave fronts get red shifted because they're stretched out. If you imagine, so the classic one is if a car goes past, it has higher frequency when it's driving towards you, and then when it goes away, it goes
yes,
and that's the Doppler effect, except that's applying to sound waves, whereas we're talking about light waves when we're talking about space. From a layman's perspective, this is equivalent to seeing invisible colors. I think that's a good way of looking at it. You might be able to look into space. You can see the visual spectrum from about 300 nanometers to 900 nanometers. But everything outside of that is invisible to a human. You need sensors and telescopes to see them. So our entire understanding of the universe could radically change based on what we see from the James Webb Telescope in 2022. Incidentally, it's named after the man who oversaw the creation of NASA from 1961 to 1969.
Fitting.
It's a pretty good legacy. But NASA, of course, is not the only player in the space game. SpaceX has revolutionized the space race by attempting to tackle the big question: can humans become an interplanetary species? What's your money on?
Yes.
Good. I like it. Positivity. Critical to making the dream of Martian colonies a reality is a reduction in the cost per unit weight of rocket payload to orbit. If this can be reduced below a critical threshold, it may be feasible to freight large quantities of goods to other planets and places in the solar system. Let's have a look at this. So, NASA has never had much success with cost reduction. It is, after all, a public body. But SpaceX has made amazing progress in this area. Just look at this. That's not played backwards. Like, that is the hover slam landing pioneered by SpaceX, which enables boosters and rockets to land cheaply and non-destructively.
I've never seen such a controlled landing.
It's incredible. And they've not just done that once, they've done it dozens of times.
Wow.
Now, that was a puny little booster, but this is amazing. So the advantage of doing this, by the way, is that such rockets can be recycled and then sent into space again and again and again, which dramatically cuts the cost of launches. So on March the 3rd of this year, SpaceX demonstrated the first successful hover slam landing of its Starship prototype, SN10. Let's play this clip.
Coming up on 5 minutes, 45 seconds. We're down below 2 kilometers. We're preparing to light 3 Raptor engines to begin the flip sequence. It'll culminate with landing on the landing pad in Boca Chica.
100 tons.
10,000 tons. Look at this. It's enormous. It looks like CGI.
looking at like a model launch pad.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like
that's like watching a scene from Thunderbird. I'm
It
expecting
is.
to see a string.
they've what we just saw there is 10,000 tons of rocket being landed by 3 rocket engines and some fins, more or less. It's one of the most incredible and spectacular engineering feats of the modern era. It's really quite impressive. Now, the Starship is currently projected to be able to carry about 450 tons of payload to Mars per trip.
Wow.
Which, now this depends on a number of variables, of course. If this technology matures, and it will, then we can easily conceive of fleets of interplanetary space rockets delivering building materials and supplies to Mars. This is no white elephant. It's the gradual erosion of a cosmic barrier to human expansion.
This is
happening
seismic.
right before our eyes. It's incredible.
You know what my question's going to be, don't
What?
you? How much is this going to cost?
And that's the thing. SpaceX is a private company.
Mm.
So it can be done entirely commercially. If it were NASA doing this, then of course all of the expenses would have come through taxation. But because it's SpaceX, they've set themselves up in a financial environment where they can get funding from all sorts of different sources. They can actually manufacture a viable business. Yes, they do receive government contracts from NASA and that sort of from the US government and other governments as well, which want stuff launched. But generally speaking, it's not on the level of climate change, for example, where the things that are being asked of us are eye-watering. Obviously, it's expensive, but it's all getting cheaper, and it's happening in the private sector, so it's financially viable.
Yeah. So these I'm just going to call them devices because I'm illiterate in this subject. But give it 100 years. Will this be able to transport literally anything to the point where people can actually leave a planet that, according to the those preaching the end of the world as we speak, is this not going to become an enterprise that only the wealthy can access, or a service that only the wealthy can access?
I think a lot of that depends on what happens to the economy on Earth rather than the economy in space. Fundamentally, getting people off the planet is very easy. I mean, if I had my way, I would send all retired politicians to Mars so we don't have to hear from them again. I mean, imagine if Tony Blair had been sent to Mars. It'd be great.
Well, we would all be. I would subsidise for that myself.
Yeah, I'll crowdfund. We'll start one. But the problem is keeping them alive at the other end, because space is a very inhospitable place. The surface of Mars, which we just saw there, it looks like just some desert on Earth, but it's a deeply difficult place to start a colony. And we have to develop a lot of other technologies to enable a viable colony. It would be easier, for example, to start a colony at the bottom of the sea, where we could quite easily sink hundreds and hundreds of tons of material.
So Mars is not that planet, then?
Might be. It might be enough for a base. I would certainly love to spend a year or two on Mars. Get me off this planet. Anyone asking? I'm right here. Write me an email. Anyway. But... and I would love the idea of setting up a colony in this new frontier. But of course, you must contend with the reality that it will be a very harsh existence.
Yes, and I find it laborious enough to wear a face mask now and to see other people wearing face masks. Living on Mars would take that to a whole new level, would it not?
I think it would. Although there is the saving grace that there is. I think one of the frustrations with the masks is that you feel that it's not necessary sometimes.
Yes, whereas on
YouTube
Mars, it would objectively be absolutely necessary because you would literally drop dead.
It's like, you can't complain about wearing an oxygen mask on a planet with no atmosphere. Come on.
Yeah.
Right. No. But there's also some good news on the environmental front. It's not just space. This is also NASA related. NASA Ozone Watch. The ozone layer has continued to heal and is looking very healthy at the moment, as you can see there. Ozone is particularly important to us since it blocks out harmful high-energy rays from the sun, like UV. Significant damage was done to the ozone layer in the latter half of the 20th century by chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs. Have you heard of these?
I haven't, sadly.
Okay, so these are inert synthetic gases, more commonly known by the name Freon, and they were banned in 1987 by the Montreal Protocol. By 2010, production and use had been completely phased out worldwide, even in developing countries. This is a phenomenal environmental success story. Yes, it involved international regulation, which I'm generally skeptical of, but it's a great example of people recognizing a real danger, a real undeniable danger to the environment, and collaborating effectively to stop it.
Wow.
And the ozone layer isn't the only thing healing in the environment of 2021 either. Scientists have developed a technology which could tackle coral bleaching. Go to the next one. The technology is called coral IVF.
Interesting.
And I have a quote here as to how it works. Our researchers capture the coral eggs and sperm from healthy reefs to rear millions of baby corals in specially designed enclosures on the reef and in tanks before delivering them onto small areas of damaged reefs to restore and repopulate them. The baby corals settle onto those reefs, and in years to come they will grow to dinner plate size and beyond, at which point they'll sexually reproduce and have their own coral babies, re-establishing the breeding population of the damaged reef. So for those who aren't aware, if you've seen coral bleaching, it's miles and miles of coral reef just turning white because it's stressed and dying. Coral is a very fragile member of the oceanic ecosystem. And this seems like a way that we can very effectively and on a large scale combat the environmental damage, especially to the Great Barrier Reef and others.
Impressive.
Yep, the success of this world-leading research not only applies to the Great Barrier Reef, but to all coral reefs around the world. We can start to restore and repair damaged coral populations where the natural supply of coral larvae has been compromised. Our research team, led by Southern Cross University's Professor Peter Harrison, pioneered this innovative technique for the first time on Heron Island in 2016, returning the following year to review the progress and deliver more coral babies. A true innovator in his field, Professor Harrison co-discovered the phenomenon of mass coral spawning more than 35 years ago.
Fantastic.
I mean, isn't that just an amazing and uplifting story?
It really is.
This guy has put his life's work into preserving and restoring the coral reefs, and he's achieved it. He's doing it.
Look, why is no one talking about this in the news? And the same would apply to the story about the ozone layer.
Right.
I mean, to my understanding, the ozone layer at this point is literally gone, or at least if I can find my news to CNN
Right.
and the BBC. And
Up until 2018, mainstream publications like Forbes were still saying, no, the ozone layer isn't healing, it's all a lie. It's been healing consistently for decades now. It's doing really well. We will forget that it was even holed in 10 years' time, probably. So,
yes, it's extraordinary how we're misled.
Isn't it just? And there's more good news for the ocean. It doesn't stop with coral. Microbes may be evolving to digest plastic. So obviously we have problems with plastic waste being dumped into the oceans, particularly in developing countries, and it just ends up swimming around the oceans, creating huge wastelands of oceanic plastic, which are harmful to marine life. This is bad. Everyone hates it, no matter where you are on the political spectrum. I think we can agree that chucking loads of rubbish in the sea like this is bad.
Yes.
But nature is resilient, nature is adaptable, and evolution has got our number. Published in Microbial Biology, the study takes the first large-scale look at microbes' potential to degrade plastics by evaluating DNA samples from the environment, as well as a dataset of 95 enzymes that have been previously studied. They found over 30,000 non-redundant enzymes in nature with the potential to degrade 10 different types of plastic. That's pretty impressive.
It is.
Even more interesting, the study notes that the type and amount of enzymes correlates with location-specific pollution trends, showing just how ever-growing plastic pollution is causing these organisms to evolve.
I don't know what else to say other than the intelligence.
I know. It doesn't require intelligence. It's just this is evolution. This is science. This is nature.
Well, this is nature's intelligence.
But it's not a centralized intelligence. It's just, I suppose, we're sort of projecting an intelligence onto an incredibly resilient and complicated system.
Okay, I guess, isn't there a centralized intelligence in nature, though? I mean, again, I'm well out of my depth on all of this. I mean, this is some of the most pleasant white pills that I've ever been given. Honestly, thank you so much for this. But I was led to believe that actually, in the Amazon, for example, trees are growing at a faster rate than they ever have to try to counteract the excessive levels of carbon dioxide that's being emitted. Like that's an example, or at least a sign of some kind of central intelligence that nature has.
There are so many feedback mechanisms. Nature is millions and millions of complicated feedback systems laid on top of each other, and yes, it does things we can't even expect.
Yes.
And anticipate. It's really a remarkable system. I think the thing which really annoys me about a lot of environmental questions is that Nature is so simplified and dumbed down, either to fit within scientific models or to fit within our puny, limited understanding as plebs, that by the time it arrives at us, we just hear, oh no, this is dying, this is doomed, this is gone, oh, it's all... And that's not how it is. Nature is extremely resilient. And I think it was James Lovelace. Is it Lovelace or Lovelock? I get confused.
I wouldn't know.
He came up with the Gaia hypothesis, which was a popular way of really expositing how nature is resilient and how it adapts to the things that we do to it. So even more interesting... No, I read that, sorry. We found multiple lines of evidence supporting the fact that the global microbiome's plastic degrading potential correlates strongly with measurements of environmental plastic pollution, a significant demonstration of how the environment is responding to the pressures we are placing at it, said Alexei Zalesniak at Chalmers University, co-author of the study. So to summarize, places where we're putting loads of plastic, the local microbes are saying, there's all this stuff here. And through a process of natural selection, they are starting to learn how to break it down and digest it and use it. Incredible.
It is.
So there's good news in the skies and there's good news in the seas. All we need this year is peace on Earth, and we'll have the full set.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast, The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as this article from Hugo, What If COVID is the New Vietnam?, which is talking about the fact that, of course, we have shot ourselves in quite a rut, haven't we? You can also check out the audio track there, in case you don't like reading, for Silver and Gold tier members, which I sympathise with. But also, if you'd like to follow what else is coming out on the site, always follow us at Getter, lotuseaters_com. Thank you and goodbye.